Welcome to the Odds Breakers, number one place for shared, sharp betting information.
All right, welcome back to podcast 43 of 2019. I'm your host, Kiev O'Neill. You can tweet me at OBKiev or tweet us at The Odds Breakers. Follow us on social media /The Odds Breakers. My friends, we have a medium show today. Normally we do fantasy Monday night / Tuesday morning, a little late because of the Labor Day weekend. But, you know, since you had your drafts, there's really nobody on the waiver wire that you're dying to pick up. I know the McCoy thing was huge. Now he's on the Chiefs. It really hurts Williams over there. But I think there's going to be a lot of shared time. And it also hurts Darwin Thompson and Darrell Williams. But, you know, that's really the main thing that happened. Obviously, Doxson got cut by the Redskins and got signed by the Vikings, but I don't think he's worth anything. Maybe in a dynasty league, but I doubt it. But either way, we'll have our fantasy D-Nasty back on next week to obviously talk about waiver wires and players trending up, trending down, all that good stuff. This episode is being brought to you by mybookie.ag for a 50% sign-up bonus. Wait. It's a 100% sign-up bonus. Please visit MyBookie and use the promo code TheOddsBreakers. Terms and conditions apply. If you'd like to help us out with our costs and sponsor our podcast and website, we'd love to help you out. Please visit theoddsbreakers.com, click shop, and for $17.99 a month, you can become a premium member, get access to my picks and plays before the line moves. For $2 more, you can be a patron subscriber, have all that, and get the podcast a little bit early. And if nothing else, please visit theoddsbreakers.com and become a free picks newsletter subscriber. But there's going to be some good value to this show either way. I've been slammed, but I was able to prepare to talk about misleading final scores from week one, which is huge when it comes to valuing the next lines, going against some overreactions. Then obviously some letdown spots from week one and some get-up spots for week two and some look-ahead spots. And there is definitely some look-ahead spots. I'm also going to give you a play. Since we're not doing fantasy, I already made a play that I'm going to give to you. And then we're going to do our Big 10 power ratings, go over a little bit of the adjustments that we made. And then obviously Wednesday we'll be back to normal, giving you a few more plays, free plays for the weekend, and for NFL as well, of course. NCAA and NFL have a guest on, and that will hopefully bring you guys a ton of value coming into college football week 2, NFL week 1, and making some great plays. Well, first thing we can do here is to go over some of these games, shall we? So, let's start it off. We can talk about Georgia Tech and Clemson, but I guess there's not a lot to talk about. But, you know, Lawrence looked a little bit erratic. I mean, he only had 168 yards. He did throw 2 picks, but I mean, Clemson took care of business. I mean, ETN got 205 yards and 3 TDs. The game was in the books pretty early. You know, Georgia Tech isn't exactly one of those teams that I'm dying to bet on anytime soon here. But Clemson not only covered the spread, they hit the over and, you know, cashed a lot of tickets for some people. So, you know, nothing really, you can't really read into that game. It's not like you're going to start fading Clemson because Trevor Lawrence didn't look that bad, didn't look that great, but you know, Clemson took care of business. Texas State played Texas A&M. A&M was in an interesting spot here looking ahead to Clemson possibly, but nope, they were able to cover that spread as well. I believe the spread was around 33 points where it finished. The under hit in that game. Utah versus BYU. Now, this game was really sad for BYU because You thought that they would have put up a little bit better of a fight. I mean, Tyler Huntley from Utah only threw 106 yards, and Zach Wilson from BYU threw 208 yards, but those 2 interceptions is what killed them. Utah also was great on the ground, 262 rushing yards to 92 against BYU, so that hurt as well. But this score was way out of whack, 30-12. Next, on Friday, my Wisconsin Badgers kicked absolute ass, and that made me extremely happy. It was a nice, easy game. One of my plays. It kind of came to fruition what I thought.
But they are who we thought they were.
Well, South Florida was who I thought they were. They couldn't stop the run. And that, really factored in. I mean, Wisconsin's got a great run game. You got to admit. I mean, their run game stands up with the best of the best. And now, obviously, does the passing and the defense stand up with the best and the best? I'm not so sure about that. Florida, to be honest, South Florida missed some important throws in the beginning of that game, just in guys' hands, right? Dropping passes. After that, it just kind of spun out of control. But I thought that, you shouldn't overreact to Wisconsin a little bit too much at all. It's not like they're the best in the Big Ten at this point. I'm still concerned about Jonathan Taylor fumbling the ball. He's done that a lot last year. Let's kind of hope that that's gone now. But he looked extremely good. This team looked very good. Jack Cohn looked pretty good. I like what I saw. That's all I can say. I really like what I saw. I know their safety, Scott Nelson, is a little bit banged up, so we'll see what happens and what he looks like for next game. Central Florida destroyed Florida A&M. Wimbush, 168 yards in the air, 2 touchdowns, and they played a lot of quarterbacks that game. Dylan Gabriel had 127 yards, 3 touchdowns. It was just completely overclassed. Florida and A&M's terrible. Maybe even an opportunity to fade good old Central Florida this week. We'll take a look at that a little bit later. Cincinnati handled UCLA. A lot of people were on UCLA, but that was a Thursday game. Cincinnati definitely handled them by 10 points. I thought UCLA would be a little bit better personally. I stayed away from this game, but they're still not there apparently. You think with their coach over there, that Kelly, you'd be able to put something together in year 2 a little bit better than that. But like I said about Michael Warren before, I think he's a beast. Desmond Ridder had 242 yards passing for Cincinnati. That was a fantastic game for Cincinnati. But now they got big old Ohio State coming up, so we'll see if that can possibly continue there. Let's kind of scroll down here. Minnesota did not look that good on Thursday night. They should have lost really to South Dakota State. South Dakota State kind of blew that game. I'll get into that a little bit more. They had a lot of turnovers that didn't go for them. Michigan State could not cover their spread against Tulsa. You thought it was going to happen towards the end, but they were able to run the clock out rather than having to kick a field goal. It's just one of those things. Rutgers just started out losing to UMass, and then they just came back and destroyed them. They were down 21-7 in the first quarter. Then they scored 31 unanswered points in the second quarter. That was kind of crazy. A lot of Rutgers bettors out there really was scared for a little while, and then the game was just nice and easy in the second half. Only 10 points were scored in the second half, 69 total points. So they scored 59 actually in the whole first half. I'll tell you this: the FIU Tulane game, that was a pretty disappointing game for us over bettors because FIU and FIU and Tulane scored 56 points the first 70% of the game, all the way till 4 minutes and 44 seconds left in the third, and the whole rest of the game, they didn't either team didn't score 1 point. I had the over 57. It closed at 59. I was on the right side of it from a sharper perspective, but I was extremely disappointed with that. And that's almost a bad beat in itself if you can't score. Now, the reason I guess I was worried is because I knew that Florida International would be going for touchdowns and going for it on fourth and not kicking a field goal. I was just kind of hoping Tulane would get some points or kick a field goal, but that just did not happen. So very disappointed there. You know who else is disappointed is probably the SEC. They did not have that great of a weekend. Now, obviously, LSU destroyed Georgia Southern. I was wrong about that one. I was hoping that Georgia Southern would be able to put up a few more points than what they did, but they just got boat raced the first beginning of that game. 42-3. It started out. They were done. Couldn't even put up a point. That's just LSU, and Ed Orgeron keeps proving how good he is. Burrow was 23 for 27 and 278 yards. But if you look at the rest of it, the SEC, teams like Missouri losing to Wyoming. What an interesting first game to pick off. But that was really bad. I mean, terrible look. Then you have Auburn kind of skated by Oregon. Thank God for them. That was a good game. It went under. That was one of our main bets that we were happy we won. Then you have teams like Tennessee losing at home to Georgia State. You have South Carolina losing to Mac Brown and the North Carolina Tar Heels. I mean, I didn't watch this North Carolina-South Carolina game, but I was like looking in the box score for one of those like uneven games, like South Carolina scored way more points, yet they turned the ball over, misleading final score there, and I didn't find it. North Carolina just kind of took care of business. Sam Howell had 245 yards and 2 TDs. Jake Bentley looked terrible, 142 yards and 2 interceptions. But you really have to give it up to Mac Brown right there, and maybe he's back. Mac's back. Now the Big Ten, they did pretty good. I mean, Purdue was the bad story for the Big Ten, but in general, you have to be happy with some of the stuff they did. I know, obviously, Ohio State didn't cover; it was close. But when you look at the rest of what happened, the smaller teams did very well with Illinois, Rutgers, Iowa. I guess Northwestern was kind of a fail. They kind of blew that game up, but they got so injured during that game. They lost their quarterback and their running back, Bowser. Pretty sad for them. Penn State destroyed Idaho. Indiana took care of Ball State. Illinois destroyed Akron. Nebraska beat South Alabama, but they didn't look too good. But Maryland took care of Howard. So, with the 2 bad losses there, you don't have to, I guess, hold your head down when you're looking at the SEC losing to those smaller games. But, we'll see where the Big Ten becomes ranked towards the end of the year. The last game I want to recap is Oklahoma. They took care of business there. But I got to tell you, me and a lot of other people that I know was on Oklahoma first half -12. As a matter of fact, it went all the way up to -13.5. And they missed a field goal of 36 yards to go up at the end of the half. And I got to tell you, that one hurt. When a field goal's that easy and he misses it, that is kind of, you're getting towards bad beat country right there. So was definitely pretty pissed off about that. But anyways, let's get into some misleading final scores from college football week 1. This is kind of the important stuff. Missouri versus Wyoming. Missouri outgained Wyoming 537 yards to 389. That's huge. That's almost 148 yards, it looks like, difference. So I don't know what the heck happened there. But I think that the 3 turnovers was really what did them in. And Missouri had to go play up high in the mountains. A lot of people were on Missouri. That spread kept going up and up, so that was definitely a tough one for a lot of bettors. South Dakota State versus Minnesota. South Dakota State outgained them 367 to 308. One extra turnover, and they lost 28 to 21. I was a little upset about that one. I was thinking about my Minnesota future and season win total there. Maybe South Dakota State's that good of an FCS team, but definitely a bad look for Minnesota. Utah versus BYU. Utah only outgained BYU by 68 yards, but won by 28. Okay? 3 turnovers for BYU. 3 of them. Purdue versus Nevada. Purdue outgained Nevada 423 yards to 298, a 125-yard difference, yet they lost 34 to 31. There was 5-0 turnover ratio. Purdue had 5 turnovers. Misleading score, but still a bad look. Maybe there's some value on Purdue if Sindelar can keep it straight, or some possibly value to fade Nevada. Eastern Michigan versus Coastal Carolina. Coastal Carolina outgained Eastern Michigan by 63 yards and lost a turnover battle 4-1. Fresno State versus USC. Fresno outgained SC by 15 yards, but lost 31 to 23. Indiana State versus Kansas. Indiana State outgained them by 21 yards, but still lost by 7. Georgia State versus Tennessee. Tennessee outgained Georgia State by 52 yards and lost by 8. 38 to 30 was the final score, a 3-1 turnover ratio. So, Tennessee, they outplayed them by total yards, but still lost to Georgia State, which was just brutal. The 3 turnovers did them in. Colorado State versus Colorado. Colorado State outgained Colorado by 30 yards, okay, and still lost by 21 points. There's a 4-0 turnover ratio there. Next, let's get into college football week 2 spots. Value spots, letdown spots. We have Auburn that beat Oregon. They could let down a little bit versus Tulane. Maybe Auburn expected to beat Oregon, but it was still a really big win for them. So I don't factor that in a ton on this game. Wyoming at Texas State after Wyoming beat Missouri is a letdown spot. Georgia State hosting Furman after they beat Tennessee. Hawaii could be a letdown spot after beating Arizona, but since they had 2 weeks to prep for Oregon State, I kind of have to, brush that one a little bit under the rug. North Carolina hosting Miami after beating South Carolina is a letdown spot. And Nevada going to Oregon is a letdown spot. And lastly, Colorado State hosting Western Illinois is a letdown spot. Now, once in a while I miss some of these guys, so feel free to tweet us at the Odds Breakers if I do. Loved hearing stuff I missed, so I could either possibly bet on it or take a better look at the next game. Look ahead spots. We have South Carolina looking past Charleston Southern to Alabama. That'd be pretty bad, but since they lost, but that's a possible look ahead spot. Since they lost, though, I don't really chalk that up, but you never know. UCF looking past Florida Atlantic to Stanford can be very real. Syracuse looking past Maryland to Clemson. Iowa looking past Rutgers to Iowa State. That's definitely one to worry about there. Michigan State looking past Western Michigan to Arizona State. And the reason that is because it's a revenge game. Michigan State went to ASU last year and lost. Penn State looking past Buffalo to Pittsburgh. And I guess, Pittsburgh's kind of like a in-state rival there. I wonder if Penn State would look past a team like Buffalo. It's very possible they looked very good their last game. But remember, it was against a pretty easy team. Let's get into my Big Ten power ratings. And for this, I round to the half point. I don't on my real power ratings, but I round it just for the sake of you guys handicapping games. Ohio State, I had at 20.5. No change for me. ESPN upgraded them to 14.4. Team Rankings has them at 21.8. A slight downgrade. Don't know why. I guess because they didn't cover the spread. Now, some of these are pretty erratic from ESPN and Team Rankings because they use all these different formulas of returning production, coach, and things like that. So people shouldn't go by a public power rating until a little bit later, in my opinion. But that's how they have it. So it's completely up to them how they have their secret sauce. Michigan, I have at 20. I didn't downgrade them. I know they didn't cover the spread, but still, it's the first game. I'm not overreacting. ESPN downgrades them to 19. Team Rankings downgrades them to 21.1. Wisconsin, I'm keeping them at 15. They are who I thought they were, I guess. And ESPN upgrades them to 12.5. Team Rankings takes them to 22.5, and they have them in their top like 5 or something. I'm not going to go anywhere near that. I think they're a 15. I think I was right about that. Let's see where Sagarin has them. It's because they're my team. Sagarin has them in their top 9, his top 9 right now, but it's just because of such a blowout there. You still got to remain true to your initial thoughts. When you're balancing your power rating, coming from what you prepared for week 1 and the reaction to week 2, you got to be very careful not to over adjust. Next, we have Michigan State. I downgraded them a little bit to 13.5 from 14. ESPN downgrades them to 12.4. Team Rankings downgrades them to 14.3. Minnesota, I downgraded them to 13.5 as well. ESPN has them down to 7.5. Team Rankings has them all the way down to 1.1. But I still kind of believe in this team. I have to go a little bit by my earlier thoughts, obviously, before this week. Iowa, 12.5, no movement from me. ESPN upgrades them to 10.7. Team Rankings downgrades them to 12.4. Penn State, I upgraded a lot. I brought them from 9 to 12. So they're right there too. ESPN has them all the way up to 21.3. Team Rankings 20.5. Completely disagree with that. Nebraska, I downgraded down to 9. ESPN downgrades them all the way down to 4.8. Now, this was a huge difference. Team Rankings took them down from 11 to 6.8. That's huge. So that's how you just can't trust some of these swings. I mean, the biggest swing was Wisconsin on Team Rankings going up 14.7 points, from they're around a 7. So that's how you really can't trust their power ratings right away. Indiana, 5.5. ESPN has them at a 3.7. Team Rankings has them a 4.1. And these are points above the average team. That's why I use these two, because they kind of go the same way I use my power ratings. And let's see here. Well, they won, but they didn't cover, I guess. Maryland, a 3. And I upgraded them slightly. ESPN has them a 9.7. Team Rankings has them an 8.7. That's 10-point upgrade from ESPN. Only a 3-point upgrade from me, but they did really well their first game. I don't know if I mentioned Northwestern. I took them down to a 7. ESPN has them at a 2.2. Team Rankings has them at a 6.9. Purdue, I took them down to a 2. And I suppose I had them at a 3.5 last week. So they're around what I thought they were. ESPN upgrades them to a 0.5. Maybe because they had the better yards. Team Rankings has them down to a 4. Bad showing from the bad game. In Illinois, I upgrade them from a -4 to a -2.5. Team ESPN has them at 0.1. Team Rankings at -0.5. And then Rutgers, I upgrade them from a -8 to a -7, I believe. And just a small upgrade. I mean, they played the worst team in football, UMass, so I'm not going to overreact. ESPN has them at a -4.6. Team Rankings has them a -8.6, so I'm kind of in the middle. All right, well, let's get into our play for college football week 2. Well, our first play anyway from the first podcast of the week. We're going to Tuscaloosa, my friends, where the Alabama Crimson Tide will be hosting New Mexico State. Alabama is a 54-point favorite. Huge favorite. But this one is kind of simple to me. Alabama really does not care about putting an ass whipping on the little children of the poor teams. We've always talked about this every single year. Since 2009, Alabama is 17-0 straight up against these bad teams when they're laying 40 to 6 points. But they're only 4-13 against the spread when they're laying the 40 to 60 points. 4-13 against the spread. I do not see why to not be on this system trend here. Alabama, they have a SEC team all ready to play next week at South Carolina on the docket. So this bet really has nothing to do with how bad New Mexico State is, because Alabama could beat them by over 60 points if they really want to. But straight power ratings, I have it as a 50, and 54 to 50 is not a huge difference, obviously. But what I do know is at least I'm on the right side of that one, and I think Alabama puts in their third string, third quarter. I think they give New Mexico State a little chance to score a couple points. Obviously, that's just how Nick Saban is. Have to stick with the trend. This is a 2-star play going with New Mexico State plus 54 in Tuscaloosa. My friends, thank you very much for listening to this podcast. Sorry it was somewhat rushed, just kind of a busy week after Labor Day. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. Please share. Please contact us if you have anything you'd like to talk about or if you have anything you'd like to share. Have the best of luck this weekend. We'll have one more podcast as usual, 2 a week. Go get some news.
But I guess you didn't know. As I said, the story goes. Baby, now I got the flow, 'cause I know it from the start. Baby, when you broke my heart, that I had to come again and show you that I'd win. You lied to me. All those times I said that I loved you, you lied to me. Yes, I tried. Yes, I tried. You lied to me. Even though you knew I'd die for you, you lied to me. Yes, I cried. Yes, I cried. Return of the man. Return of the man. Come on. Return of the man. Oh my God. You know that I've been here. I am. Return of the man. Once again. Return of the man. Top of the world. Return of the man. Watch my flow. You know that I've been here. I go. So I'm back up in the game. Running things to take my swing. Letting all the people know that I'm back to run the show. 'Cause what you did, you know was wrong, and all the nasty things you done. So baby, listen carefully while I sing my comeback song. You lied to me. She said she'd never turn on me. You lied to me. But you did. But you did. You lied to me. All this pain you said I'd never feel. You lied to me. But I do. Return of the man. Return of the man. Hold on. Return of the man. Don't you know? You know that I've been there. Here I go. Return of the man. A little girl. Return of the man. What's my prayer? Return of the man. Up and down. You know that I've been there. Right there now.
Mark, stop lying about your big break.